Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. Back again with me Nada Nabila. In this video, I will explain how to configure DHCP static on router. By using DHCP static, we as administrator can determine the IP address that will be used by the client. Next, configuration steps. Open application box. Login with MAC address. Click connect. First step is to check the interface that will be used using the interface print command. The interface I use is either1 because either1 status is R, which means running. Add the IP address for each interface that will be used as a server. Here I use two interfaces, namely either1 and either2. Enter the IP address to the interface using the command IP address add address 25.25.25.1/24 interface either1. Press enter. Next, IP address for either2 with command IP address add address 26.26.26.1/24 interface either2. Press enter. Then check the IP address that we have added with the IP address print command. After that, set up a DHCP server on each interface using the IP DHCP server setup command. DHCP server interface is which interface will be given the IP address of the DHCP server. In here, I use either1. DHCP address page means selection of IP network from the DHCP. In here, I use IP default. Gateway for DHCP network means specify the gateway IP that will be provided by the client. Address to give out the IP address range given by DHCP. In here, I use range default. DNS server to provide a DNS server for the client, which is 8.8.8.8. This is IP from Google. List time. List time is the time that will be provided for borrowing IP by the client. The time I use here is 10 minutes. Press enter. Next, I will do a configuration for either2 with command IP DHCP server setup interface either2 DHCP address space default gateway default address to give out default 2 DNS server. This is IP from Google, namely 8.8.8.8. Press enter. This time I use 10 minutes. Press enter. Check the configuration results with the IP DHCP server print command. And you can see a list of DHCP server that have been created. Next, make a DHCP request to the client by using obtain IP address in order to get an automatic IP address. Open network. Property, Internet Protocol version 4. In here, choose obtain an IP address automatically. This is to click OK. Then check the IP address. Click status, detail. Wait, before do a disable and enable first. Check again IP address, status, detail. In here you can see that IP address has been obtained by the client, and the results we can see the IP address, gateway, and DNS has been changed. IP address is 25.25.25.254 and default gateway 25.25.25.1, DHCP server 25.25.25.1, and DNS server 8.8.8.8. Choose close. Open Winbox again, click reconnect. Also, check the IP that has been registered in the DHCP list by using the IP DHCP server list print. And you can see the results are the same. Here the status is still there, namely dynamic, which means automatic. Next, we will create a static IP DHCP server for the client, meaning that the IP DHCP server that we have created for the client, we added first to make it static by using IP DHCP server list make static numbers 0. Press enter. Check the status of the IP address has changed to static or not with IP DHCP server list print. And you can see that the IP address has changed to static because there is no GR dynamic sign. Next, edit the static IP address using IP DHCP server list edit list edit value name address number 0. Press enter and change the IP static from 254 to 25.25.25.25. Press Ctrl O on keyboard to save. Next, check the IP address has changed or not with IP DHCP server list print. And you can see that the IP address has changed. After that, check either IP address on device or client use. Click network, disable, enable, check the status IP address. And in here, you can see that the computer has got a static IP address that we configured, namely 25.25.25.25. Next, text. Configure a DHCP static on server interface 2. Before the configuration, move LAN cable first to interface header 2. Klik MAC address, lalu and connect. Check the IP address that has been obtained by the client, because earlier we had configured the DHCP server setup. Open network, disable and enable client, check the IP address, and you can see the result. We can see that IP address, gateway, and DNS server have changed as configured. In here, IP address use 26.26.26.254 and default gateway and DHCP server 26.26.26.1, DNS server 8.8.8.8. Close. Click reconnect. After that, check the IP DHCP server with the IP DHCP server list print, and you can see that status is still dynamic. Then to change it to static, we use the command IP DHCP server list make static numbers 1. Then check the status of the IP address has changed or not by using IP DHCP server list print. Press enter, and the result can be seen that the IP status has changed to static. Then, to the IP address editing by using the command IP DHCP server list edit value name address number 1. Change the IP address to 26.26.26.26. Then press Ctrl O on keyboard to save the result. After that, check status the IP address has changed or not by using IP DHCP server list print. And you can see that the IP address has changed to static IP, namely 26.26.26.26. After that, check the IP on the client. Open network. Do a disable and enable again. Click status to see the IP address. And we can see the client IP address has been changed to IP static, namely 26.26.26.26. Also, default gateway and DHCP server IP address has changed to 26.26.26.1. Okay, this configuration has been finished. Hopefully this video useful, and thank you for watching everyone.